I stand in our living room, the polyester of my graduation gown making my skin itch in the June heat. The ceiling fan whirs overhead, stirring the air but providing little relief. Across from me, Lauren adjusts her cap, our tassels swinging in unison identical in appearance, yet worlds apart in significance. Girls, look this way. Mom's voice rings out with practiced enthusiasm as she positions her camera. But her eyes, I notice, linger on Lauren a beat longer, the familiar warmth reserved for my sister alone. The living room has been transformed into a shrine of academic accomplishment. Cream and gold streamers hang from the ceiling, and a large Congratulations Graduates banner stretches across the fireplace mantel. I can't help but notice how the decorations cluster more densely on Lauren's side, as if gravity itself favors her. Dad places his hand on Lauren's shoulder, squeezing it with pride. "My girls," he says, but his palm doesn't reach for me. I stand slightly apart, as I have for most of my life, connected by blood and circumstance, separated by everything else. Our relatives and family friends mill about, filling plates with catered food and offering congratulations. Aunt Rebecca catches my eye from across the room and gives me a genuine smile. At least someone sees me. "All right, everyone." Dad claps his hands, drawing attention. "Time for the gifts." The chatter dies down as Dad wheels in a large box wrapped in gleaming silver paper with an enormous red bow. My heart quickens despite myself. After years of disappointment, I still harbor that childish hope. Maybe today will be different. Maybe graduation will finally be the equalizer. "This one's for Lauren," Dad announces, beaming as he places the massive package in front of my sister. Lauren's hands fly to her mouth in a theatrical gasp that seems rehearsed. She tears at the paper with practiced excitement, revealing a smaller box inside. When she opens it, she lets out a squeal that makes my ears ring. "Car keys?" She jumps up and down. "You didn't." "We did," Mom says, glowing with satisfaction. "It's parked right outside." The guests collectively move toward the large bay window. Outside sits a gleaming white Mercedes-Benz with a massive red bow on the hood. "The class," Dad explains to our uncle, loud enough for everyone to hear, "ran us about 55,000, but nothing's too good for our star." The impressed murmurs ripple through the crowd. I stand frozen, still waiting, still hoping. And for Violet, Dad says, almost as an afterthought. He reaches into his jacket pocket and pulls out a simple white envelope. The room quiets as he hands it to me. It's too light for a set of car keys, too light for anything substantial. Still, I accept it with steady hands, carefully opening the seal while every eye in the room watches. Inside is not a congratulatory card, not a check, not even a gift certificate. It's a bill, itemized in my father's precise handwriting. 4 years of car insurance, $8,400. Contribution to household utilities, $7,200. Computer equipment, $5,500. Miscellaneous family expenses, $8,900. Total, $30,000. "We thought you'd appreciate this approach, Violet," Mom says, her voice drooping with false sincerity. "You've always been so practical." The room spins slightly. I stare at the numbers, each one a confirmation of what I've always known but never wanted to believe. My trembling fingers betray me, though I fight to keep my face composed. A memory flashes. Christmas morning, age 10. Lauren unwrapping the latest gaming console while I received sensible clothes for school. My parents explaining that some children need extras to thrive, while others are naturally self-sufficient. Another flash. 15 years old, teaching myself coding from library books in my bedroom. The sounds of my parents driving away to attend Lauren's debate tournament echoing in my ears. Then at 17, my first freelance job completed at 2 a.m., the payment confirmation bringing tears of pride to my eyes, pride no one else would share. Family responsibility, Dad is saying now, his explanation clearly rehearsed. "We've supported you both equally, but differently. Lauren needs different things to succeed in life." Lauren, already texting friends about her new car, glances up with a dismissive shrug. You always say money doesn't matter to you, Vi. From across the room, Aunt Rebecca's eyes meet mine. Her concerned glance is the only acknowledgement that something terribly wrong has happened. I feel it then a flash of white-hot hurt that burns through my chest. I quickly mask it with the composure I've perfected over years of similar moments. But something has shifted. Something has broken. I carefully refold the bill and return it to its envelope. Thank you for this, I say, my voice steadier than I feel. It's a real eye-opener. No one seems to notice the weight of my words. The party continues around me, as guests drift outside to admire Lauren's Mercedes. I stand alone in the center of the living room, invisible as always. I slip upstairs to my bedroom while congratulatory exclamations float up from the driveway. Inside, I close the door quietly and pull my pre-packed suitcase from beneath the bed. I'd prepared it last week, a precaution, a suspicion, an escape route I'd hoped I wouldn't need. As I place the last few items inside, I hear Lauren revving the engine of her new car, the sound of freedom that was given to her, while I am expected to pay for the privilege of having existed in this house. Today was supposed to be our day, but then it never really was our anything. I zip the suitcase closed. It contains everything I truly need. And what I need most right now is to leave. Morning sunlight filters through the thin blinds of my new apartment. The space is small, but truly mine. I sit at the edge of the bed, my fingertips tracing the worn cotton of unfamiliar sheets. My phone buzzes for the fourth time this morning. Catherine. That's how I think of her now, not Mom. Names create distance, and distance is what I need. I let it ring until silence fills the room again. 11 missed calls, I murmur, scrolling through the notifications. 3 from Catherine, 4 from Richard, and 4 from Lauren. The timestamps show escalating concern or perhaps inconvenience. The first calls came around 9 last night, casual in their spacing. By midnight, they were coming every 20 minutes. By this morning, panic had set in. I imagine the scene at home, Catherine discovering my empty bedroom, the closet cleared of essentials, dresser drawers half empty. Richard dismissing it with a wave of his hand. She's just being dramatic. She'll be back. Lauren would have claimed my bedroom before noon. The larger space, the better view, a prize she's coveted since childhood. I can see her hauling armfuls of designer clothes across the hallway before my sheets even cooled. My phone buzzes with a text message from Catherine. Violet, this tantrum has gone on long enough. We're worried. Please call. The word tantrum ignites something in my chest, a flash of heat that confirms I've made the right decision. 22 years old, college graduate, and still my emotions are dismissed as childish outbursts. A knock at my door interrupts my thoughts. I tense, wondering if they've tracked me down already. I peer through the peephole to see Aunt Rebecca's concerned face. I brought muffins, she says when I open the door, holding up a paper bag that smells of cinnamon and nutmeg. Her eyes take in the sparse apartment, the secondhand furniture, the single suitcase still partially unpacked in the corner. Oh, Violet. How did you find me? I ask, accepting the bag. I've known you since you were born. You're methodical. You'd want to stay close enough to maintain your client relationships, but far enough to avoid accidental encounters. She settles onto my only chair. You also used my address for your freelance business mail 2 years ago. It wasn't hard to guess you'd choose Oakwood Apartments. I sit across from her on the edge of my bed. Did they send you? They don't know I'm here. She hesitates, her fingers twisting the strap of her purse. There's something you should know. Lauren, she knew about the bill beforehand. The muffin turns to sawdust in my mouth. What? She told me not to warn you. Said you wouldn't mind, that you'd just handle it like always. For the first time since graduation, I feel the careful wall I've built begin to crack. My sister wasn't just a beneficiary of her parents' favoritism. She was complicit in their scheme. The betrayal cuts deeper than I expected. I see. I manage, swallowing hard. Rebecca reaches for my hand. You're not coming back, are you? No. The word carries surprising weight, finality without regret. After Rebecca leaves, I throw myself into establishing my new life with the same methodical focus that got me through college. I arrange my minimal possessions with care laptop on the small desk by the window, Clothes hung precisely in the closet, toiletries aligned on the bathroom shelf. Each item has purpose, nothing extraneous. I spend the afternoon expanding my client list, sending professional emails from my independent domain rather than the family's shared account. By evening, I have 2 new projects that will cover next month's rent. My phone continues to vibrate. I silence it without looking. That night, I lie in bed, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling. Traffic sounds drift through the window so different from the suburban quiet of my parents' home. Sirens wail in the distance. A couple argues in the apartment above. Yet despite the noise, despite the strange surroundings, I feel something unexpected. Relief. It comes in waves, this strange liberation. No one will walk into my room unannounced. No one will comment on my clothing choices or work schedule. No one will expect me to solve their problems or finance their whims. The weight of constant comparison has lifted from my shoulders. In the days that follow, allies emerge from unexpected places. Aunt Rebecca becomes my reluctant messenger, bringing news from the family without pressure to return. My online clients remain blissfully unaware of my personal drama, valuing me solely for my skills. Mrs. Abernathy, the elderly woman in apartment 3C, brings me a houseplant on my 3rd day. I left my husband of 40 years when I was 62, she tells me, setting the potted fern on my windowsill. Some family ties need pruning for new growth to happen. Margot, the owner of the coffee shop downstairs, starts saving the corner table for me each morning. The quiet one with the computer, he calls me. Sliding free refills my way with a paternal wink. 1 week into my self-imposed exile, the text messages from my parents grow desperate. Catherine, sweetheart, we just want to check in. Why aren't you answering? Richard, Violet, this has gone on long enough. We need to talk. Then the manipulation begins in earnest. Catherine, we're struggling without you. You know we've always supported you. Richard, your sister is asking about you. Don't you think you're being selfish? I read each message carefully, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Instead, I simply leave the read receipts as my only acknowledgement. Let them see that I've read their words. Let them wonder why I choose silence. Let them feel, for once, what it's like to be ignored. 2 months of silence feels like power in my hands. I check my bank account on my lunch break, me latest deposit clearing, without the usual dread of calculating what portion my parents would expect me to contribute to family expenses. The number grows steadily, unmolested by others' needs. My phone buzzes with the 7th voicemail this week. I don't need to listen to know its contents. They've evolved from Catherine's concerned, just checking in, sweetheart, to increasingly desperate pleas about bills and financial difficulties. Richard's messages carry the edge of command that once would have sent me scrambling to solve whatever crisis had emerged. I delete without listening. There's a certain peace in that simple action. My tiny apartment has begun to feel like mine in ways the larger family home never did. A second-hand desk positioned perfectly beneath the window, a bookshelf filled with computer manuals I no longer have to hide between classic novels to avoid comments about always working. The absence of Lauren's mess spilling past invisible boundary lines. The quiet when I want it quiet. The coffee shop beneath my apartment has become a sanctuary of sorts. Margot, the owner, nods as I settle into my usual corner table. Your father came by yesterday, he mentions casually, placing my usual order before me. Quite insistent about knowing your apartment number. My stomach tightens. What did you tell him? Marco's weathered face creases with a smile. That we respect our customers' privacy, he didn't take it well. I wrap my hands around the warm mug. Thank you. Family's complicated, Marco says with the wisdom of his 60-plus years. But it should never be combat. At my desk that evening, I open the most recent email from a tech company needing database work. The offer is larger than any contract I've handled before. My fingers hover over the keyboard, old habits whispering that I should consult with Richard first. But Richard never consulted me before presenting me with a bill for my existence. I accept the contract without seeking anyone's approval but my own. Later, I find myself leafing through a small notebook I've kept since I was 15. Each page documents instances of imbalance: Christmas gifts with approximate values, school events attended or missed, praise given or withheld, financial support offered or denied, the clinical accounting of a child trying to understand why love seemed to flow so naturally toward one daughter while requiring justification for the other. I'd never shown it to anyone, partly from shame at appearing so petty. Now I recognize it wasn't pettiness, but self-preservation documentation against the gaslighting that accompanied every confrontation about unequal treatment. You're exaggerating. We support you both equally, just differently. Lauren needs more encouragement to succeed. The knocking startles me. 3 sharp raps, followed by a familiar voice. V, I know you're in there. Lauren, my twin, my opposite, my lifelong competitor for resources I never wanted to compete for. I opened the door to find her looking smaller somehow. The confident posture she'd perfected at 16 seems diminished. Her designer Percy high school graduation gift hangs from her arm, but her usual polished appearance shows cracks. They sold the car, she announces without preamble, pushing past me into the apartment. The Mercedes. Are you happy now? I closed the door quietly, watching her survey my modest living space with something between pity and confusion. Why would that make me happy? I ask, genuinely curious about the workings of her mind. Because you were jealous. She drops onto my secondhand couch. You always were. I wasn't jealous of the car, Lauren. I was hurt by what it represented that they'd spend $55,000 on you while handing me a bill for $30,000. Her eyes flicker with something perhaps the first glimmer of understanding. They sold it at a loss, she continues. $17,000 down the drain. Dad says it's your fault they had to act so desperately. A strange calm settles over me. Now you know what it feels like. What feels like? To have something taken from you. The words land between us with physical weight. Lauren's expression shifts, comprehension dawning in slow, painful increments. They're really struggling, Vi, she says, her voice smaller. The credit card bills were higher than they let on. Dad says they were counting on your savings. My savings? I interrupt, the calm fracturing slightly. The money I earned teaching myself coding while you were at debate tournaments they drove you to? The money I made at night after finishing the chores they assigned primarily to me? That savings? Lauren examines her manicured fingernails. They said you owed. I know exactly what they said. They've been saying it my entire life without speaking the words directly. My purpose was to make everyone else's life easier. A knock at my door interrupts whatever Lauren might have replied. When I open it, Aunt Rebecca stands there, a small box in her arms. I salvaged what I could, she says, glancing past me to see Lauren. Oh, I didn't realize you had company. Just my sister, I say, taking the box. Inside are childhood momentous me high school academic awards, childhood drawings, the small robotics trophy I'd won in 9th grade that had been relegated to the basement, while Lauren's debate trophies line the hallway. They're purging, Aunt Rebecca explains. Selling things. I didn't want these to disappear. Lauren rises from the couch. Things are bad, Vi, really bad. Her eyes shine with unshed tears. Look, I know I've never said this before, but I'm sorry. For a lot of things. They're talking about selling the house, and I just thought, maybe you could help. Not for them, but for me. The request hangs in the air, couched as an apology, yet still asking me to sacrifice. The familiar family dynamic reasserting itself, just with different words. No, I say, the single syllable carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken ones from my past. Lauren blinks. What? I said no, I won't rescue them. Or you. I set Aunt Rebecca's box on my desk. I spent my whole life solving problems I didn't create. I'm done. After they leave Lauren in teary indignation, Aunt Rebecca, with a gentle squeeze of my hand, I finally allow myself to cry. Not the controlled, private tears I'd perfected in childhood, but deep, body-shaking sobs that feel like excavation, like archaeology of buried pain. I cry for the child who kept a notebook documenting her own diminishment, for the teenager who believed that if she just worked harder, she'd earn the love freely given to her sister, for the young adult who received a bill instead of congratulations on her graduation day. My phone rings as the tears subside, and Rebecca's name on the screen. They're selling the house, she says without greeting. They have no choice now. The family home, the site of 1,000 small wounds and occasional moments of joy, the physical space that contained my systematic erasure. And I manage, unsure what she expects from me. Your father listed it this morning. Below market value, needing a quick sale. She pauses. With what you've saved in that new contract you could buy it, Violet. You could buy your family home. The irony lands like a physical blow. Me, purchasing the very house my parents never fully allowed me to belong in. Why would I want it? I ask, voice steady despite the storm inside. I don't know, Aunt Rebecca answers honestly. Revenge? Healing? Closure? Or maybe just because you can. After we hang up, I sit in the growing darkness of my apartment, weighing power against peace, justice against freedom. The choice before me isn't really about real estate at all. It's about whether taking back your power means using it the way it was used against you, or forging something entirely new from the ashes of what was taken. I sit cross-legged on my apartment floor, surrounded by spreadsheets and financial projections. The mid-morning sun streams through my single window, catching dust motes in its beam. My laptop screen displays my savings account balance, a number that has grown steadily since I left home 6 months ago. Enough to buy the family house if I wanted to. My phone buzzes with another notification. Catherine, I've stopped thinking of her as mom, in my private thought shiz, sent her third email this week. The subject line reads, "This was your home too, don't you care?" The automatic filter I created sends it straight to a folder I check only on Sundays when I'm emotionally prepared. I've set similar boundaries for texts and voicemails. Technology serving as the barrier my parents never allowed me to build. I return to my calculations. The money I've saved, properly invested, will secure my own future. Not theirs. Not Lauren's. Mine. A knock at my door breaks my concentration. Aunt Rebecca stands in the hallway, holding a cardboard box. "Just a few things I thought you might want," she says, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "Your science fair medals, that journal from middle school, some photographs." I accept the box with a nod. "Thank you." Rebecca surveys my small apartment with approving eyes. "You've made this place your own." "I've made me my own," I correct her. She settles onto my secondhand couch. "They're selling below market value. The realtor says they're desperate to close quickly." I don't respond. We've established rules about these conversations. She can share information, but I won't discuss my reactions or plans. "Richard's been trying to spin a story around town," she continues, her voice measured. "That you abandoned the family when they needed you most." Something flickers in my chest, not hurt, but a cold anger. And it's backfiring spectacularly. A hint of satisfaction crosses her face. "Mrs. Holloway at church cornered me last Sunday. Said she always noticed how they treat you differently. How at your high school graduation party, they spent 20 minutes praising Lauren's B+ in calculus while never mentioning your scholarship." I look away. People notice more than you think they do. The Crawfords dropped Catherine from their dinner party circuit. The Hendersons are suddenly busy whenever Richard calls. She leans forward. "The community's choosing sides, Violet, and they're not choosing them. I never asked for that." "You didn't have to." Rebecca straightens a stack of books on my coffee table. "The truth has a way of emerging." 3 days later, Marco waves me over to a corner table at his coffee shop. His daughter Elisa slides a freshly baked scone across to me. "On the house?" she insists, her protective instinct matching her father's. "Your parents made quite a scene at the farmer's market yesterday," Marco says, keeping his voice low. "Richard blamed Catherine for allowing you to leave. She blamed him for the car purchase. Very public, very ugly." I focus on breaking my scone into precise, even pieces. "Richard doesn't look well," Elisa adds. Gray. Thin. My mother says it's stress. I don't respond. Their health isn't my responsibility anymore. Marco places his weathered hand over mine. 3 new clients called asking for your consulting services. Word's getting around about your work. His coffee shop has become an unofficial headquarters. Clients find me here. Friends check in. A surrogate family forms around steaming mugs and quiet conversations. That evening, Mrs. Abernathy knocks on my door, her financial advisor in tow. This young lady helped me secure my retirement, she says, introducing the sharp-eyed woman beside her. She can help you make that money work for you instead of just sitting in savings. By the time they leave, I have an investment strategy that will triple my earnings over 5 years. 6 months after graduation day, I signed the papers on a small house 3 neighborhoods away from where I grew up. It's modest but mine, purchased with money I earned and saved. The afternoon I move in, Lauren calls. I need a loan, she says without preamble. Her voice lacks its former confidence, the golden shine tarnished by reality, just until I find something steady. And what are you doing to find something steady? I ask, unpacking dishes in my new kitchen. I have an interview tomorrow. The admission comes reluctantly. Retail. Nothing like what I was supposed to have. The Mercedes was what you were supposed to have too. I say, neither cruel nor comforting. How's that working out? Silence stretches between us. I start training next week, she finally says. Mom and Dad keep fighting about money. Dad's blood pressure is so high his doctor called twice last week. I absorb this information without comment. Mom called Aunt Rebecca crying yesterday. Said she never realized what they'd done until they had to do everything themselves. Too little, too late. But I don't say that either. The family's falling apart, Vi, Lauren whispers, without you holding us all together. After we hang up, I find a cream envelope in my mail. Inside, a handwritten letter in Catherine's flowing script. We know we lost you, the final paragraph reads, and that's a price far greater than any car or debt. I read it twice before placing it in my desk drawer, unmoved. Words cost nothing. Actions built this wall between us. The next morning brings another envelope, this one bearing Mrs. Abernathy's neat handwriting. Inside, formal legal language catches my eye. I read it twice to be sure I understand. I've updated my will. The accompanying note states plainly, I never had children who appreciated me, but I see myself in you, Violet. The papers indicate a future inheritance, her house, her investments, her carefully tended garden. Security beyond what I could have imagined last June when I packed a single suitcase and walked away from family obligation. That night, from my front porch, I watched the neighborhood settle into evening routines. Through windows, I glimpsed families gathering for dinner, ordinary moments I once craved. But in the quiet of my own home, I find something better than what I lost. Recognition from someone who sees my true worth. Have you noticed how often the people who truly value us aren't blood relatives at all? Why do you think it takes a family crisis for some parents to recognize their children's true worth? The certified letter sits on my kitchen counter, its official markings like a poison label. I've stared at it for 20 minutes. The sender's information, Greenfield and Associates, attorneys at law, burning into my retinas. When I finally slice it open, the absurdity of its contents nearly makes me laugh. Formal notice of claim against earnings. Family investment in your education. Reasonable expectation of financial contribution. The legal jargon continues for 3 pages. But the message is clear. My parents want a piece of my success. The business I built from scratch, the clients I earned through late nights, and self-taught skills, they're claiming it as dividends on their investment. My phone vibrates. Lauren's name flashes on the screen, the 3rd call today. Against my better judgment, I answer. V? Her voice sounds small, nothing like the confident sister who once accepted a Mercedes without a second thought. They've done something terrible. Dad hired a lawyer. I know. The envelope crinkles in my hand. I received the letter this morning. I tried to talk them out of it. A catch in her throat suggests tears. They're telling everyone you abandoned us, that you owe them. I close my eyes, not surprised, but still feeling the sting. And what do you think, Lauren? The silence stretches between us like a tightrope. I think they're desperate, she finally admits. The house is gone. Dad's credit is ruined. They're living in a 2-bedroom apartment off Mapleton Road. The address registers not far from where I started after graduation day. The symmetry would be satisfying if it weren't so sad. This legal claim. Lauren continues, her voice steadying. It's garbage, Vi. Pure garbage. They know it too. Aunt Rebecca's living room feels like neutral territory, though her eyes telegraph worry as she pours me tea. Outside, fall leaves scatter across her lawn, red gold like warning flags. Your mother's been calling the family, she says, settling into her armchair. Thanksgiving is in 3 weeks, and she's working the phone like a politician. I cup my hands around the warm mug. What's she saying? That you've forgotten where you came from. That family stands by family. Rebecca's mouth tightens. Your cousin Michael asked if that was the same family that handed you a bill on graduation day. A small satisfaction warms my chest. Words getting around. Yes, well. Rebecca adjusts the throw pillow, avoiding my eyes. People are taking sides, Violet. Your father's sister isn't speaking to me because I wouldn't condemn you at church. She pauses. The annual Hawthorne family Christmas photo is scheduled for December 1st. Your mother mentioned pointedly that you'll be noticeably absent. The Christmas photo tradition stretching back to my grandparents' generation. My absence will speak volumes. I'm sorry you're caught in the middle, I tell her, meaning it. Rebecca reaches for my hand. Don't be. Some middles are worth standing in. My attorney's office smells of leather and lemon polish. Clarissa Wu reviews the letter one final time, her experienced eyes narrowing at certain passages. This is legally indefensible, she states, setting it down with a decisive tap. No court would entertain the notion that parents are entitled to their adult child's earnings as repayment for raising them. I've brought my documentation leather portfolio containing years of financial records. Every inequity meticulously noted. Lauren's car insurance paid while mine wasn't. My computer equipment purchased from my own savings while Lauren's came as gifts. College application fees covered for one twin, but not the other. We could countersue, Clarissa continues, flipping through my records with raised eyebrows. Emotional distress. There's certainly evidence of differential treatment. The thought of dragging my family through court, exposing our private pain for public consumption, sits like a stone in my stomach. What's the alternative? Clarissa closes the portfolio. Sometimes the most effective response isn't legal at all. The letter takes me 3 days to write. I check each fact twice, strip away accusatory language, and focus on documenting the timeline. No editorializing, just events. When I attach a copy of the graduation bill, $30,000 of itemized family expenses, the narrative needs no embellishment. I send it to my extended family, my parents' close friends, and the church community that has been my parents' social circle for decades. The final paragraph offers Lauren assistance with job searching and career counseling, should she want it. I don't send it to hurt them. I send it because the truth, plainly stated, is the only defense I have against their revisionist history. The responses come like rainfall after drought, first a few drops, then a downpour. Aunt Rebecca calls to tell me my father's brother, always their staunchest ally, asked them point blank about the bill at Sunday dinner. Your mother couldn't look him in the eye, she says. She excused herself and cried in the bathroom for 20 minutes. Lauren texts that the lawyer has withdrawn the claim. No explanation given, just a formal letter of disengagement. At the grocery store, I run into Mrs. Peterson from my parents' church. She squeezes my arm and whispers, "We had no idea, dear, no idea at all." She slips me a Thanksgiving invitation before hurrying away. The power has shifted. Not because I sought revenge, but because I finally stopped protecting them from the consequences of their actions. Aunt Rebecca's Thanksgiving table gleams with polished silver and crystal glasses that catch the afternoon light. I smooth my dress forest green, simple but elegant hand, help her arrange name cards for the 12 guests. Are you sure about this? She asks, placing my card at the head of the table, opposite from where my parents will sit. I'm sure. My voice is steadier than I feel. Guests began arriving: cousins, Rebecca's friends, Lauren. My sister freezes when she sees me, then rushes forward, her embrace awkward but genuine. "I didn't know you'd be here," she whispers, her eyes scanning my face. "I should have seen it, Vi. All those years, I should have seen how they treated you." I step back, studying the sister who once accepted my invisibility as the natural order. "What changed?" Lauren's eyes fill. "They did it to me too. Once you were gone and couldn't be the responsible one anymore, they expected me to fill your role." She wipes at a tear. "I'm so sorry, Vi. I didn't leave to hurt anyone, Lauren." I tell her, the truth simple but powerful. I left to save myself. The doorbell chimes. Rebecca glances at me, and I nod. She disappears into the foyer, and murmured voices drift in familiar cadences that once defined my world. My parents step into the dining room. Catherine's hand flies to her mouth, her eyes widening in shock. Richard stops abruptly, his face draining of color as if he's seen a ghost. I continue slicing the turkey, my movements deliberate and calm. "Happy Thanksgiving," I say, meeting their eyes directly for the first time in over a year. "Please sit down." I stand in my home office, fingers tracing the award plaque from last month's Business Journal feature. Self-made success gives back. 2 years have passed since graduation days, since I walked away with nothing but a suitcase and a bill that quantified exactly what my family thought I was worth. The letterhead of the scholarship foundation I established catches my eye: 5 students this year, all self-supporting through college, each receiving what I never did, recognition of their resilience. Next to it sits a local newspaper with my photograph. The mentorship program for young adults from difficult families has garnered community attention. Not the revenge I once craved, but something better. Redefinition. My Christmas tree stands in the corner, each ornament chosen with purpose. A handed angel from Mrs. Abernathy, a delicate glass teacup from Aunt Rebecca. No random accumulation, just carefully chosen pieces reflecting actual connections. 2 months ago, I sat beside Lauren at her business school graduation, our parents conspicuously absent. "I told them not to come," Lauren had said, her voice carrying newfound steadiness. "Today I wanted family who's proud of me for the right reasons." The housewarming gathering last weekend still lingers in my memory, the chosen family that fills my larger home with genuine warmth. Aunt Rebecca arrived with the family quilt tucked under her arm. "This belongs with you now," she said, placing it in my hands. "Some traditions are worth keeping, even when others aren't." Lauren stood awkwardly in the corner until Mrs. Abernathy took her arm. "I'm officially adopting your sister," my elderly neighbor announced with characteristic bluntness. "It's never too late to find the family you deserve." Lauren's eyes met mine across the room, her smile tentative but real. On my bookshelf sits the journal my therapist encouraged me to keep, tracking progress rather than grievances. In yesterday's session, we discussed the difference between forgiving and forgetting. "The graduation bill stays framed on my wall," I told her. "Not as a reminder of hurt, but as a reminder that I chose something better." 2 Christmas cards sit on my sideboard. One from my mother, her handwriting softer somehow, less demanding. Inside, a note about her therapy sessions, and a request not a demando call when I feel ready. The other from my father, formal and distant, with a gift card that feels like an attempted transaction rather than connection. I place them both in my desk drawer, neither accepted nor rejected. Some relationships heal at different rates, some never do. I've made peace with both possibilities. My doorbell rings. Through the peephole, I see my mother standing alone, snowflakes gathering on her shoulders. Her face lacks its usual certainty. "I was in the neighborhood," she says when I open the door, an obvious lie given the 30-mile drive from her apartment. I don't expect anything. I just thought, maybe we could talk? I study her face, searching for the manipulation that once characterized our every interaction. Instead, I find something unfamiliar: humility. "I can offer coffee," I say, stepping aside. Nothing more. As she passes my study, her eyes catch on the framed bill hanging prominently on the wall. She flinches but says nothing. It reminds me to value myself when others don't, I explain quietly. Later, I sit in my small garden as evening falls, watching my breath form clouds in the cooling air. My phone screen illuminates with messages. The group chat with Marco and Doctor, Sophia about weekend plans, Lauren confirming our sister weekend at the lake, a tentative text from my mother about her next therapy session. Nothing from my father. And that's okay too. I wrap myself tighter in Aunt Rebecca's quilt and whisper the truth it's taken me 2 years to learn. Some debts can never be repaid, but some gifts like freedom you give yourself.